have 6 speakers, Father Joshua and Dr. Cynthia. Niang Hangzu is be going to coming here exactly at 6, and Navkaran Kaur Khalida, and then we have Dr. Gurinder Singh Garewal, Bibi Brahmji Singh Kaur Khalida. Please, to the speakers, can you come up and sit down right next to the stage? And there's snacks in the back, and we have an exhibition going on. Please feel free to get up, grab some snacks, come back, and let's fill up the fronts. Thank you very much. And I'm going to hand the mic off to Pratima Kaur.
वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह जी आयां सारे मेरा नाम प्रतिमा जीत कौर है and I'm also a community activist. Hello. I just wanted to share like a few words for why we are here today. Today we come together to remember and pay tribute to Jaswant Singh Khalida, a man whose unwavering commitment to justice and human rights continue to inspire us all. Born in 1952, his story is one of a person from humble beginnings who became an important champion for justice. In 1980s and early 1990s, Punjab faced a repressive Indian state marked by people disappearing and extrajudicial killings. During this period, Jaswant Singh Khalida emerged as a brave voice of truth, justice, and hope. He fearlessly investigated and uncovered the involvement of security forces and police in serious human rights violations. His determination to reveal the truth, despite personal risks, made him an example of unwavering dedication to justice. In 1995, Jaswant Singh Khalida paid the ultimate price for his bravery. He was kidnapped, tortured, and killed because of his unyielding pursuit of justice. He joined a long lineage of Sikh shaheeds and martyrs. However, his legacy lives on, reminding us of the extraordinary impact one person can have when they are determined to make a difference. Today, as we gather to remember him, let us draw inspiration from his remarkable life and selfless service, continuing the pursuit of justice and human rights in his honor. And then for today, we have amazing set of speakers here today. So I'm gonna call first on Father Joshua Lichter, who has been doing advocacy work for about 10 years. He is also a Star Wars fan, like myself, with a deep passion for theology. He enjoys playing lightsaber with his son, Elliot, and discussing books with his wife, Rachel, of 23 years? 23 years. Josh excels at using music, movies, and pop culture to explain theological concepts and scripture. He has a heart for those who feel uncomfortable in church and a mission to reach the spirituality lost. So please join me in welcoming Father Joshua.
Thank you for that great introduction. If I had known that my nerdy, geeky Star Wars side was going to be included, I would have done a completely different lecture and explained to you the parallels between Narendra Modi and the evil emperor in the Star Wars series. Unfortunately, I'm not prepared to give that speech, but maybe next time I'll do that, and you'd be amazed the parallels that exist there. So let me open by saying first, Sat Sri Akal. It's a pleasure to be here. In my church tradition, we will usually open up gatherings by doing what we call exchanging the peace. And so I would like to invite all of you to participate in this to whatever degree you're comfortable doing so. It's real simple. I'm just going to say, peace be with you. And then if you feel so moved, you may respond by saying, and also with you. It's a way that we believe we can invite the peace of God to be present with us in gatherings like this. Peace be with you. Very good. So my name is Father Joshua Lichter. I am a priest at a small Anglican church in Roseville, California. And as a community, we have always felt called to serve the needy and marginalized in our community. And I've been involved in human rights issues, especially as it involves persecuted minorities in India, for about 10 years now. Christians believe that all of humanity has been created in the image of God. And this means that no matter what a person's status in life, no matter how much or how little they may have, everyone has an endemic value and worth. And part of our call as people who say we are followers of Christ is to honor that and to respect that. And I wasn't planning on doing this, but I was particularly moved when I walked in here and saw all these names. Every single one of these names is a person who is made in the image of God and has value and worth, and they deserve to be honored and respected, and they didn't deserve what happened to them. Part of our holy call as followers of Jesus is to do our part to continue the work that we believe our Savior began in the world, making things right, tackling things like injustice and oppression. And we have a responsibility to use the gifts and the privileges we have to give a voice to people who don't have a voice. At the same time, we have to identify evil when we see it and call it out. It's our holy calling to challenge the darkness that we encounter in this world. And right now, a great darkness has fallen on India. Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS, officially founded in 1925, this radical Hindu nationalist movement drew inspiration from the Nazis in Germany. They established a grassroots movement that infiltrated all tiers of Indian society. And today, India's highest-ranking official, Narendra Modi, is a member of the BJP, the political arm of the RSS. Their goal is to see India become an exclusively Hindu nation, one where all faiths get assimilated and then consumed by their radical theology and ideology. Theirs would be a totalitarian form of Hindu nationalism hidden beneath the veneer of a professed democracy, where anyone who does not conform to their religious, political, or social views would lose their rights, or worse, they'd find themselves forced to suffer and even die for their beliefs. They may promote freedom for all, but that freedom is only there so long as you conform to their radical worldview. Make no mistake, no matter what they say, modern India is not a democracy, and we must challenge this darkness. The RSS has operatives and volunteers everywhere. They excel at working behind the scenes to promote riots and acts of violence against anyone who stands in their way, especially religious minorities. They can overtly work to pit Sikhs against Muslims and Muslims against Christians and commit acts of terror and then blame the violence on whatever minority they choose. They excel at propaganda and spreading false information, shifting the blame away from Hindu extremists and reframing the narrative in a way that favors them. And anyone who attempts to push back gets labeled a terrorist. RSS government leaders, including Modi, can then just claim plausible deniability and look the other way while thousands suffer at their hands. We must challenge this darkness. Since May of this year, Manipur has been burning. The Christian population has been targeted, and the government has attempted to black out all communications so that the world would remain unaware of the violence. This is textbook RSS work. Local police have arrested the victims. Government officials have looked the other way and would have continued to ignore the violence and the problem had video of the violence not leaked online. It's been 4 months. The violence has not stopped. We must challenge this darkness. Part of the RSS's goal is to have a united India that spans across all of South Asia. A Khan Bharat is what they call it. No more Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Myanmar, Nepal, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, or Tibet. Just one giant Hindu nationalist empire. Some people may think that this is far-fetched and an impossibility, and prior to Modi's reign, it may have been. But as Modi has flexed his RSS muscles, India's culture has experienced a radical shift, one that normalizes Hindu nationalism and encourages violence against any perceived threat to national unity. The G20 is a group of representatives from 19 sovereign nations, along with the European Union and the African Union. They regularly meet to discuss global economic issues. This year's G20 summit was held in New Delhi 3 weeks ago, and Indian delegates this year, including Modi, referred to their nation as Bharat, not as India, for the first time on all official channels. Now, most of the world doesn't bat an eye at this. They don't realize the significance of this. It means darkness is falling on India. Officially changing the name will feed the Hindu nationalist beast and make the RSS vision even more entrenched in all levels of Indian culture. The fires that are burning in Manipur will spread to all minority religious communities as the RSS attempts to extinguish the light of religious pluralism. We must challenge this darkness. The RSS vision isn't limited to dominance in just Southern Asia. They want to exert their influence on a global scale. They currently have operatives in powerful nations utilizing vast economic resources to influence elections and policies. Sadly, they've exerted this influence even here in the United States, helping certain candidates win elections and pushing their agendas through various civil organizations. No matter what party they belong to, our elected officials here in the United States need to know this. We need to challenge the darkness. And even worse, it appears RSS operatives have committed acts of violence in foreign nations, including our own. In August of 2015, Satwinder Singh Bola, he was the son-in-law of hunger strike activist Bapuji Sarat Singh Khalsa, he was brutally murdered in Chicago. I publicly spoke out against his murder. I prayed for his family and for his loved ones. Bola had been involved in many peaceful protests against the Indian government. Indian newspapers that covered his murder labeled him a terrorist. He was the victim, but they called him a terrorist. His murder is still unsolved, but it has the RSS's fingerprints all over it. 3 months ago, a prominent Sikh activist in Canada, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, was assassinated outside of a Sikh temple in British Columbia. India's government, no surprise here, had previously officially designated him a terrorist. Well, I'm happy to report that in a groundbreaking address to the Canadian Parliament just last week, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau publicly accused agents of the Indian government as being responsible for the assassination. Finally, as the darkness of the RSS tries to consume all of India, it's likewise casting its shadow, its malevolent shadow throughout the world. Thankfully, Canada has seen that shadow, and they've called it out publicly for what it is. We must do the same. We must challenge this darkness. I'll close with a word of encouragement. The Gospel of John contains some pretty brutal details about a time where it appeared like darkness had won in the world. It portrays the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ in the context of a story that pits light against darkness. And in the very beginning of this gospel, we're already told how things will end. This truth from the story of Jesus is true for the entire cosmos. It says this: "In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." Friends, let's unite together and continue to challenge the darkness. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Joshua Victor. That was really nice speech. Next speaker that we have is Dr. Cynthia Gaw. Dr. Gaw serves as a deacon with dedicated emphasis on human rights, and her previous endeavors have involved projects in Africa. Additionally, she actively participates in addressing concerns related to minority groups in India. She is also a former English professor, so please join me in welcoming Dr. Gah.
Thank you very much for having me. Sat Sri Akal. Peace be with you. It's so easy for us to see what we want to see rather than what actually is. Ignoring evil, refusing to resist it, not talking about it, hoping it will just go away of its own accord. It's so easy to pretend that there is peace when there is no peace. As early as Wednesday, March 9th of this year, an organization to prevent crimes against humanity that I'm associated with, called the Aegis Trust, held an emergency meeting on ethnic and religious persecution in India. All the signs were apparent. They were expecting massive persecution to break out in northeast India. Beginning in Churachandpur, just south of Imphal, on May 3rd of 2023, widespread violence erupted in India's Manipur state. This horrific violence has spread to other states, including Meghalaya and Assam. Accurate facts are difficult to obtain, but by July 29th, 181 people had been documented to have been killed in the violence, and hundreds of women gang raped. Some paint the violence as more ethnically motivated, some as more religiously motivated. While the human rights of anybody ought to be protected, understanding the source of the violence can be very important in peacemaking and attempts at reconciliation. Several facts lead me to believe that the core problem may be termed religious cleansing. The Hindu nationalist government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been non-responsive, even totally ignoring the rape and slaughter of Indian citizens. The government has been clearly sympathetic with Hindutva policies throughout India since 2014. The authorities have restricted freedom of speech, even blocking out the internet in Manipur precisely to coincide with the onset of the violence and crippling the ability of information of the violence to reach the rest of the world. Also, the Hindu majority, Meitei, has perpetrated most of the violence against Christian majority Kukis and Nagas. Yet, Meitei Christians have been particularly targeted as well. According to Open Doors, by August 14th, 4,500 buildings and homes belonging to Christians, together with some 400 churches, had been destroyed. Certainly more than 120 Christians have been killed. Around 50,000 Christians have been displaced, and these statistics continue to rise. And yet, wanting an ally and buffer against China and a strong environmental and economic partner, the Biden administration has not spoken out with any clarity against human rights violations in India. On the contrary, the Prime Minister Modi's visit in June, after that visit, the White House issued a formal joint statement with India in which, quote, the leaders recommitted the United States and India to fostering an open, accessible, secure technology ecosystem based on mutual confidence and trust that reinforces our shared values and democratic institutions. When preparing for this little talk, I wrote to a Christian ministry to children with which I work to update me on conditions in India. The response was very discouraging. What it means is simply you can't say anything or people's lives will be in greater danger than they already are. The formal response was, unfortunately, because of the current sensitivity related to working in India, we're unable to confirm or deny presently working in this country. India is considered a high-level, hard-to-reach country at this time. In order to protect our partners as well as our continued ability to import gifts into what are considered hard-to-reach areas, unfortunately, there is little we can say directly about our work there. We apologize for the inconvenience. So, the Indian government is not speaking up in defense of their own citizens' human rights. The US government is not speaking up for the human rights of India. Will you? Will you declare peace, peace when there is no peace? Or will you actually be a peacemaker? Please speak the truth in love. Have compassion on our suffering brothers and sisters. Take the part of the vulnerable and the oppressed. Stand with and for them by telling others about their plight. Write to a congressional representative or state assembly member. Urge Christians, Sikhs, Muslims, and Hindus in America to use whatever privileges or influence they have to share this information. And most of all, please pray for India. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Cynthia Ga. Our next speaker is Nyang Hongzu. Hopefully I pronounced it right. Nyang Hongzu is a member of the Paiti tribe from Manipur, India. She recently faced a harrowing experience during a violent incident in Impal on May 3rd, 2023, resulting in extensive destruction and her family's displacement. Nyang Hongzu is also, in her professional life, she is an electrical engineer in the semiconductor industry in San Jose, California. Please join me in welcoming Nyang Hongzu.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Nyang Hongzu, and I am a Paite tribal from Manipur. A Paite is one of the tribes under the Kuki umbrella. So I am here today to represent the Kuki Zomi of Manipur. So before we go into the situation today that's going on in Manipur, I just want to show you where Manipur is, because a lot of people in India don't know where Manipur is. As you can see here, Manipur is at the extreme east of India and borders Myanmar. If you can see that red dot, that's where we are. Extreme east, and we share a border with Myanmar. Next slide, please. Manipur is a very small state. It's only 8,621 square miles. The population today, projected population, because the last census was 2011, is 3.6 million. There are three distinct ethnicities in Manipur: Meitei, Naga, and Kuki. And I am representing Kuki today. Meitei is 53% of the population. They are Hindus, and they hold 40 out of 60 seats in the state assembly. This gives them legislative right to pass any bills without any opposition. They mostly live in the valley. The Kukis are only 16% of the population. That makes us just a little above 500,000. We're not even 1 million strong. We are primarily Christians, and we have only 10 state assembly seats in the state. Since it was formed as a state in 1972, the Kukis and Nagas, the tribals, have never had more than 10 seats in the state assembly. This means that we can never pass laws that impact our land or our lives in Manipur. And we primarily live in the hills. The hills are about, next slide please. The hills are about, you can see this, the red part is the valley, and that's where the Meiteis live. The rest of it are the hills. There are two distinct geography, the hills all around and the flat, fertile valley in the center. The southern part of that is where the Kukis are concentrated. The northern part are the Nagas. In the 10% of the land there, which you can see marked in red, are where all the infrastructure, the education, the higher seats of learning, healthcare, all sports facilities is concentrated. 98% of the budget of Manipur has been focused on building that 10% of land. There are about 49,000 tribals in the last census in the valley, not because we want to be there, but because the jobs are there. The hills, as I said, had only about 2% of the budget since the time Manipur became a state. So there's not much infrastructure. At least in the southern area, in Churachandpur district, there's one medical college that's 1 year old, and there's a hospital. On the northern side, nothing. So if anything happens in the hills, if you need healthcare, you'd have to go in the valley. And this is important because today, because of the ethnic war that's going on, because of the ethnic cleansing of the two Métis and Kukis, the Kukis are all in the hills and the Métis are all in the valley, and we cannot meet. If say somebody has a heart attack and they need healthcare, they cannot go to the valley, which is very close. They'll either have to just die, or they have to be flown out to Guwahati in Assam, or they have to go by land over 300 kilometers to Aizawl. That is the situation today. This slide is important because around the red area are what I will call the buffer zones. The buffer zones are where you have Métis villages in the valley, and adjacent to that are the tribal valleys. Next slide, please. This is the beautiful hills of Manipur. Next slide. Again, just showing you the beauty of our land. Next one. These are our tribal dresses. This is what we normally wear. I would have worn, except I had to drive many hours to get here today. Next slide. Okay, this is the locality in Impal called Paiteveng, where my family lived for 60 years until May 3rd. The first red block at the bottom is our family compound. There are 4 houses, my mother's and my brother's. And that red thing on the top is the church. On May 3rd, a mob, almost 1,000 strong, came rushing into this neighborhood saying, "Kill Kuki, kill Kuki." And our house is right next to the main highway. Unprecedented in the history of Manipur. They went straight to the church and started desecrating it. But while they were doing it, they threw stones and they pelted all kinds of rocks, and all the windows broke. And my family huddled in my mother's bedroom, which is the cornermost bedroom, with the lights out. And they thought, okay, they're pelting stones, the window panes are broken, and maybe that's it. But what they found out was that they went to the church and started burning it. And that's when my family knew that this is no ordinary ethnic clash. Nothing that's happened before in Manipur had the places of worship attacked until May 3rd. This is unprecedented. And in that same night, at least 50 churches, which means 50 localities, were burned and looted. Our 4 houses are looted and burned. But my family was saved because while they were busy desecrating the church, they found an opportunity to escape. The entire mob was at the church over there, so they escaped from the back. Next slide, please. So this is our family compound. Just go one after. This is after on May 3rd. This is my mother's house. In the previous picture, you saw our family. The blue thing at the corner is my brother's house. And in front, there's 2 other houses, which is not in the picture. This was on May 3rd. Sorry, May 3rd night we were attacked. This was on May 4th. And the mob came back on May 4th afternoon in broad daylight, and they burned the houses that they could not have burned the previous night. There's 60 houses in our locality. And they came back with state forces standing around, doing nothing. And they went and burned the houses that they did not burn the previous night. And you can see here the door is missing. My mother's house is not burnt because it's too close to the neighbor who happens to be a Métis. Next slide, please. Just showing, please continue with the slide. This is my brother's house, and this is the interior. Just keep going, please. Yeah. I just want you to see the destruction. So you can see, this is my mother's house. They emptied it, but it's not burnt. But the previous one, you saw the black things. Those are the gas cylinder burning. That's why it was all black and sooted. That's my brother's house. My family ended up in camp. You can see this is my family members in camp. They spent 3 days and 3 nights. This was one of the first houses that my father had built in 1960s, and my elder brother had inherited it. He was just trying to he had started renovation when this happened. Next slide, please. This is the house next to our compound. My sister was renting this house. You can see on the left, that's what happened on May 3rd night. They did not have time to burn this. They just pushed the cars around, and on May 4th, they came back in broad daylight, and this is what they did to that house. Next slide, please. This is our church, the one that they went first to attack, and that gave opportunity for my family to escape. Can you play the video, please? Yeah, these are the churches that they burnt. I collected a few of them to show you. This is our church, and you can see what they did was they would put all the pews, all the flammable together in the center and burn it. And this is after they've desecrated and burnt it. This is the church. And adjoining to the church, we have a large, housing for the staff. It's the staff quarters for the pastor and people working in the church. That was also burnt and destroyed. This is yet another church. It's one of the largest churches in Impala called Kongsai Church. This is the interior of the church after they're done with it. This is yet another church, Kuki Baptist Church in Beulah Lane. This is another church, Haukip Veng, in Impal. This attack on churches in Manipur is unprecedented. Never happened before. Another church where they're collecting all the pews and flammable. This is the church where my sister worshiped. This one is a Catholic church. So these are atrocities. I don't want to go too deep into this because it's depressing and horrifying. This is a child, 7 years old. He was hurt and he was on his way to the hospital with his mother and his aunt. The Métis mob stopped the ambulance and they burned them alive. 7 years old. Can we please move on? This is David Thieck. He was guarding his village. In one of the slides, I showed you the periphery marked in red. So we have, after the first few weeks of May, the Métis with the state forces started attacking the villages at the periphery, at the buffer zone. He was guarding one of those. He was captured by the Métis, and they cut off his limbs one by one, and finally chopped his head and put it on a bamboo pole and laughed at it. David Thieck. The two ladies, both of them disabled, mentally handicapped. The one on the left, on the right, in red, is a Kuki. The one on the right here is a Naga. Both of them were shot by Métis. The Naga lady got the killers apprehended right away because she's Naga. The one wearing red, Kuki, her killers not being apprehended till today. They're walking free. Same crime, different justice. One justice 1-0. Next slide, please. This you all know. I don't want to talk about it, but this went viral on July 19th. The crime happened on May 4th. Gang rape and paraded. By the way, the Prime Minister spoke after that video. It was like 78 days after the carnage began, for 36 seconds. And he said the perpetrators would be apprehended. They did apprehend a few people, but nothing happened after that. More attacks. She lost her husband and mother in the attack, and she was beaten, and she suffered grave injuries. Many atrocities. We don't have time to go through this, but this is happening, it's been happening, and nobody has been apprehended. There are many more, and I don't really want to focus on that, because if you want to know, please let me know, talk to me afterwards, and I'll give you more data. We don't have much time, and we don't want to focus on this. I just want you all to know that this has been happening since May 3rd. And it's not ended yet. The last few weeks have been quiet, but as recently as as recently as September 12th, 13th, and September 8th, the peripheral villages were attacked by the state forces and Meitei militants, and we lost lives, and they also lost lives because we have the army as well involved in protecting the people. So there were lives lost on both sides. I don't know when it's going to continue, but for the last few days, it's been quiet. But the attacks could happen anytime. It's not over. So other speakers have mentioned, the US has not said anything, but there's been some global support. Next slide, please. The European Parliament, July 12th, they brought it into motion, and on July 13th, they condemned it. USERF has called for India to be placed on the list of countries of particular concern. I think they've done this many times, but it's not been done yet. They've always recommended, but the US government has not done it. The New York State Council of Churches have sent out a letter to Biden and to the State Department talking about the persecution of Christians in India. But of course, US pregnant silence, nothing yet. The UK Parliament has 21 signatories of the Member of Parliament who has written about this. On September 12th, they have raised it. That's it. US, loud silence. I've approached our representatives, my senator, nothing has happened. A lot of people, our allies, have tried to do the same thing, but US continues to keep quiet. And I know that other speakers have alluded to the reasons why, China, India. So thank you so much for having me here. I want you all to know that this is still continuing. We don't know when the end would be there. And on September 4th, the UN gave out a press release, the rapporteurs, the UN experts, they put out a press release, and India said, no, it's not true. Manipur is peaceful and calm, and that was on September 4th. But as I mentioned, on September 8th, 12th, and 13th, there were attacks. So as far as India is concerned, nothing is going on in Manipur. But I'm here to tell you, as someone whose 30-member families are now internally displaced, including my 86-year-old mother and her great-grandchildren who are 1 year old, they're all displaced. My family is the lucky one because we could get them out of Manipur. But there are 204 relief camps in the Kuki-Zomi areas, and not a single relief has come from the government. Whatever the government may have sent from the center, it stops in the valley. And I mentioned that Impal is a valley and we're in the hills. Our population are today completely, fully separated. We cannot access, they cannot come. But that doesn't really matter to them because they have all the facilities that they can avail. But it matters life and death to my people. As I mentioned before, if anything happens to us in health, regarding our health, for us it's either death or exorbitant cost to be airlifted to Guwahati, to Delhi, or someplace outside. Our education, our youth, their education is stalled. There's nothing that they can do. The airport is in Impal. If people want to go to Delhi because Amit Shah calls them, they have to go by land, over 300 kilometers to Aizawl and fly out. So, though we are physically separated, it does not impact the Meiteis, but it does impact the Kuki-Zomi, not just for convenience or healthcare, but it's life and death. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Liang Hangzu. Thank you for your speech. Before I move forward with like the other speakers, I did wanted to introduce some books that we have outside. So books like Saffron America, Captivating the Simple-Hearted, India at the Crossroads. So these 3 books are free, but we would really appreciate your donations. And also lastly, one of the books for Just One Thing Cholera, The Valiant. This book is available outside for $20. We would really appreciate that every single one of you leave today with a copy of this book. And then to move forward, I will pass on the mic to Sahib Singh to introduce the next few speakers.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਸਪੀਕਰਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਆਪਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਕੈਂਡਲ ਲਾਈਟ ਵਿਜਲ ਰੱਖਣੀ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਨੋਸੈਂਟ ਆ ਬੇਦੋਸ਼ੇ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੋਈ ਦੋਸ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗੇ 17 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਛੋਟੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ 5 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 30 ਤੱਕ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਇੰਡੀਅਨ ਸਟੇਟ ਨੇ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਯਾਦ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਂਡਲ ਲਾਈਟ ਵਿਜਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਸਪੀਕਰਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਜੇ ਰੁਕ ਜਿਓ ਅਤੇ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਅਗਲੇ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਨੇ ਨਵਕਿਰਨ ਕੌਰ ਖਾਲੜਾ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਖਾਲੜਾ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਡਾਟਰ ਨੇ and she is a professional electrical engineer. Along with her family, she has dedicated her efforts to advocating for human rights and bringing attention to the tragic events involving the Sikh community in Punjab during and after 1984. I just wanted to let you guys know again that we're going to be having a candlelight vigil for those innocent lives who were lost due to the violence and the genocide done by the Indian state. They were not just killed, they were tortured and killed. And let's commemorate in those lives. Thank you. Bibi Navkiran Kaur Khalda.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. First of all, I'd like to thank Father Joshua, Dr. Cynthia Gao, and Niang Hangzo for being here, showing solidarity, us showing solidarity to their work, and them showing solidarity to the cause that Sikhs have been fighting for more than 39 years now. I would like to start with overall what the Sikh community had gone through. I would say starting 1947, but let's say the main episode started in 1984. And it was very moving to see what Niang showed us, but if we see the similarities back there in the exhibition on what the Sikhs went through in Delhi in 1984, in Indian state, no matter what the political party is and will be in future, has experimented this genocidal thing, which they always use, and they have used for centuries, I would say, on the Sikhs in the contemporary history, if we see, in 1984, and the nation was silent, the world was silent. We have gone through all this, and I personally myself don't like to call myself victim. We are the survivors because we fought back. And I would say the same thing for all the people who have the courage to even come and speak up on the stage. We should not have the victim mentality. We are the survivors because we are fighting back. And it took more than 39 years for one country to at least bring it on the world stage that India is doing this to the minorities. 6 today are in the spotlight. It's a geopolitical thing. By luck, we have gotten that opportunity. And I think this is for the first time. I wouldn't say I don't know what's going to happen, because again, everything within these Western countries or even overall world is dictated by trade. And I don't know India, China, conflicts and all that, how this whole thing is going to turn out. But as a community, Sikh community, we right now do hold a center stage in terms of bringing out and highlighting the issues that we have been trying to highlight for these many years. But also as a Sikh, then this becomes our responsibility to show solidarity to other communities which are still going through the same violence that once started on our community, and we had gone through it. Most of us moved to US, to Canada, to UK, to Australia for political persecution, for social problems, for even economic problems, and all these are linked. We are discriminated in that country because of that. And I feel personally this has been the case, that despite moving to US, despite being guaranteed all the rights in this country, most of at least the immigrants still feel that fear that we are being watched. Still feel that when they speak up or speak out, they will be watched, and they still don't have that full trust in the US system, that this system will be able to defend us, even for speaking up some of their own personal stories against India. And we have never been heard, and that's the fact. I think even today, US playing little diplomatic is kind of concerning for the minorities, and it's going really bad there in South Asia. Having Modi become an autocrat and creating another dictatorship in the world is going to be problematic even for those who are interested in trade. So they really need to wake up right now and think about what actual values do they share with that country when they say we have shared values. What are those values? So I think in long term, all these communities, they need to listen. The minority communities from there, the true stories that are coming out. And as Niang just mentioned, that it didn't just stop in May, it's still ongoing, but people have stopped noticing it because either our attention span is just for a few days and then we move on to the next issue and we forget about the minorities. But if you really want to be an activist, sometimes we all call ourselves activists, and I feel every Sikh is an activist. But when we say we are an activist, we just don't move on that quick. For any project, especially if we are talking about human rights, it actually needs your entire life dedication. Your project is not done with few tweets and few Instagram posts and few Facebook stories. It's not done there. It's actually starting outside that. That's not real activism. So if you think you truly want to contribute to this war, to this fight for human rights, and you were listening to my father's speech earlier, it was said that Khalsa, Sikhs were founded, Khalsa Sajjai Manukhi Hakkan di Rakhi Li Gaya Si. Khalsa was founded to protect the human rights of everyone. And if we cannot defend our own human rights, then we cannot really define Khalsa. So it's now our responsibility. And the other thing I was just thinking a few days ago, whenever we are in war, it's not just win and lose thing. There's this whole experience of war that we all have to go in. And after the war, how do we come out? ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਜੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਨਿਕਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਹੈ। ਜੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਦੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਨਿਕਲ ਆਏ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਜੰਗ ਜਿੱਤੀ ਹੋਈ ਵੀ ਹਾਰੀ ਹੈ। If you become like your enemy, you just better lose than winning that battle. But the thing is, we have to fight and we have to come out of this battle as a Guru's Sikh. ਗੁਰੂ ਵਰਗੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ, ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਨਿਕਲਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ। ਹਾਰ ਜਿੱਤ ਬਾਅਦ 'ਚ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਆਪਣੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਜੋ ਮੂਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੂਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਛਾਣਨਾ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੂਲ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਦੀਆਂ ਰੀਸਾਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪੈਂਤੜੇ ਵਰਤ ਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੜਾਈ ਲੜਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਲੜਾਈ ਪਹਿਲੇ ਦਿਨੋਂ ਹੀ ਹਾਰ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਫਾਦਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦਾ ਇੱਕ ਆਰਟੀਕਲ ਪੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਪਈ ਸੀਗੀ ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ 'ਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਸ਼ੇਰ ਤੇ ਹਾਥੀ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਇਟਸ ਜਸਟ fable that once an elephant and a lion are fighting, and the lion thinks the elephant is too tall, and the lion takes the support of a horse to become a taller person. But then the elephant laughs, you already lost, because in your mind I am taller, that's the loss. So Sikhan li bhi yahi problem hai, it's not just for Sikhs but all minorities. If you are a lion and you're trying to fight an elephant and you think you can't win just because he's taller, then you lost it right there. You need to fight your own battle in your own way, in your own principles, in your own philosophy that you were raised with. So right this moment, this is a message to my own community. We have been persecuted, we have been fighting, but we should not change our principles or anything under anybody's provocation that can lead us to be away from our Guru. Our first motive is to stay true to our Guru, and then we'll see who wins or who loses. So this is something today that we are here is not just to sympathize with the other communities, it is to empathize and also to show solidarity, that we hear you, we are with you. If needed, we will stand by you, even though we are also stateless people, and anywhere we go, the Indian media just labels us terrorists. And despite of that, we are here for you, and despite of our own problems, we still are committed that as a Sikh, we were created to stand out, not to blend in. So we will stand up and stand out for you all. And we expect that whenever the Sikhs are also being labeled or being persecuted anywhere, the other communities do show solidarity to us. That's all I would like to summarize with. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much. Next speaker that we have is Dr. Gurinder Singh Garewal. Dr. Garewal completed his medical education at Government Medical College in Patiala in 1975. He currently practices in Tracy, California, with a specialization in internal medicine and cardiovascular disease. In response to the suppression of Sikh voice in Punjab during 1980s, Dr. Garewal took the initiative by establishing the World Sikh News in 1984 to amplify the Sikh community's voice through journalism. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Garewal to the stage.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So I am asked to summarize what we learned from previous speakers. In the end, just give me a few minutes so I can share my thoughts. That I think will be very important. So we had the first speaker, Father Lecturer. Being a priest, he emphasized how his religion teaches humanity for all, not just for Christians. And he carries the value system to practice. And he also said we have to be the voice of the people who don't have a voice. ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਆ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲੇ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਨਿਕਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿਣਗੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਮੰਗਦਾ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ੁਬਾਨ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਬੋਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੇ That's the message. He condemned violence. He also emphasized how the current events like Sadar Niger's murder has brought into the light the Indian government behavior and how the elected representatives here are not fully informed or not showing their concern as people expect. Our second speaker, Dr. I was sitting there, I didn't get her name, but she also emphasized somewhat very similar thought process on human rights and ethnicity, religion, and policies of the government, how they are not living up to the expectations of the people. Then we have Noang Hanjot. This was overwhelming. She showed us slides which remind me 1984 Delhi. So now we understand your feelings, we understand the suffering. Like Nebuchadnezzar says, we are with you. We are with you not for a selfish interest, because that's what we learn from religion. It's very sad that for 2 months no news came out what happened in Manipur. I think we need a better alliance and communication, even though government is preventing. I think with today's resources it's possible. We need to build bigger alliances and more cooperation with each other. How many churches are burned? How many houses are burned? You know, in 1984, I became good friend of Father Raymond Kennedy. He was the priest of Catholic Church as UOP. Before he left, we were good friends for 10 years. And he has spent some time in Assam, that area. He used to tell me how they were harassed. They were harassed. They were telling them, you're converting their people to by force. Nobody can be converted by force. So I knew some of it, but I never seen pictures like this. This is a recent. We wrote, with a few friends, wrote a letter to the congressman, senator, Red Cross in Washington, that we're not able to reach these people in Manipur. Can you be of help? We have not heard anything. I'm sure even if they try, government of India was not going to let them do anything. So I think there are some sympathetic people who are going to Manipur, do whatever they can, but it's not enough. So I'm sure you in touch with our friends. You let us know what we can do other than raising the voice. I think it's our moral responsibility to do that. So I'm going to just say something out of the line, just for benefit of my friends. They want to bring Ram Raj in India. Ram was a king. Ram is also used word for God. Ram means many things. So this is under this king, that's what the Indian government motto is, what the RSS motto is. They want to bring the Ram Raj to whole India. There was, we call Dalit, no, she was a low class, so-called low class person, saying prayers in whose way, meditation. And that 2 Brahmin priests went to the king and they say, if they are going to do this, what will we do? And I think his name was Shambhuk. And he said, well, he's praying, he's not bothering you. He said, no, that is our job. If he start praying instead of cleaning the dirt, what will we do? So with this king with his own axe was forced to kill this guy. His fault was he was meditating and praying. So you think we need that Ramraj? We definitely don't need that Ramraj. So I just want to bring for something that you may not be familiar with. Then Navkiran, I'm very impressed. You're not angry at all. I thought I was going to hear very angry daughter of a father who was killed by the government. She's so composed, so well mannered. I shouldn't say manner, I don't want that right word. She's able to express everything without anger. And her main message is we fight for the human rights. We don't lower ourselves to the level of enemy. जे दुश्मन माड़ा असी भी माड़े हो गए तो फर्क ही रहा. I hope everybody got the message. Elephant and lion story, I think is good to remember. If you need the horse to help the lion, then lion is dead. So I think this is the main message. Thank you, Navkiran. So I'm going to just spend a few minutes, not too long. I know there's a lot of time. I prepare a few things that I have read, come across over a period of time. And some of you have come to this country after some time working, earning, living. You may not have that time to learn how the life has evolved in Western countries. Sometimes we think they were always like that. They always were human rights. They were always every hanky-dory, but that's not true. So starting in England, 1649, King Charles I, who the parliament had thought was tyrant, was condemned to death, and he was beheaded in front of the parliament. So the King of England, 1649, was beheaded in front of the parliament. That is how England established how king will behave with them. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So king is not above the law. They showed us how you treat the king who doesn't treat you well. So it took almost 335 years after that, 1984, for some of our people to teach that to the so-called queen in New Delhi. So there's some parallels. If you want to win freedom, you want to exert yourself, king is no better than the others. Everybody has to behave. Okay? In this country, we always used to hearing freedom of press and all that. It's a slogan. The first newspaper, Courant, was started in New England. The first one, 1722, by James Franklin. He was the elder brother of Benjamin Franklin. I'm sure many people heard of Benjamin Franklin. So he wrote a story that governor was not helping against the pirates. He was colluding with the pirates. So this guy was arrested and his paper was stopped. Finally, his younger brother, Benjamin Franklin, name has to be used to continue publishing the paper. Then his brother, James Franklin, was always in and out of the jail. The younger Franklin, at the age of 18, decided to just leave Boston. He just couldn't deal with this governor. So this is the story of the freedom of press, how they gained it. This was used to be one-page paper. They will paste on the walls. 1734, there was another newspaper, multi-page newspaper, the first one in New York, called public occurrences, both foreign and domestic. John Peter Zenger, the editor, was arrested for seditious charges, and the paper was shut off. So then moving on, George Washington was born in Virginia. Virginia was a big colony. He went to war a couple of times as the colonies were expanding, and he did very good. He was working for the governor of Virginia. The second time they cooperated with English, and he had a dream to become officer in English army, they call redcoats. But the English told him, no, you can't be officer in English army because you're not born in England. So this general was the one responsible getting freedom from the British. So British must have regretted that all their life, how they ignored such a person. So there's a parallel. Shubeg Singh was insulted by the Indian government, and what he did in 84, I'm sure they must have thought it again, what they did and how much price they have to pay. Next, moving into President Lincoln. Lincoln gave his last speech. His last speech was for black men and veterans to have the right to vote. This is the last speech. John Wilkes Booth was in the audience, the guy who killed him on April 14th, 1865. He couldn't stand the blacks will vote. So even the president has to give up his life for standing up to do the right thing. Another lady, Susan B. Anthony. I think every lady should remember her name, Susan B. Anthony. She was the president of women's suffrage movement for 8 years. She's one of the pioneers who fought for women's right to vote in this country. She went to vote, they arrested her, that you don't have a right to vote. She said, I don't give a damn, I'm not going to pay the fine, you do whatever you want. Okay. So her slogan, remember her slogan, I'm going to say it more times. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. It's not only for ladies, it's for everybody. So their movement finally succeeded, 19th Amendment, women got to vote. So nothing was gotten easy here also. In 1963, about 100 years, almost 100 years after Lincoln's presidency, when the Emancipation Proclamation was written, another young man was standing in the Washington saying, I have a dream, and he has to be killed. He was killed because he was speaking for the people who had no voice, like we were told before. Many of our people know that early part of this century, when Indians, especially Punjabis, came to this country, they were not allowed to buy land. People in Canada was not allowed to do the same. There was a ship which were turned back, and they were not allowed to land. They were there 1 month, more than a month in the sea, starving, not even having enough drinking water. With persistence, with the fight, efforts of everybody, look, now today, I think it's a matter of time when California land will be majority owned by Punjabis. So it's not anything to be pride, but persistent pays. So we are told religion should not get into politics. So you be told, why in the Gurdwara you are discussing politics? Not too long ago, I think was about the same time in 1984, when Solidarity in Poland was able to get rid of the communism. You know who helped them? President Reagan and Pope John Paul. You can find that evidence many places. There's a book recently by John Brennan, who was CIA director one time and national security advisor. I think it's a good reference in that, very convincing, that President Reagan and John Paul got Poland freedom. So John Paul and President Reagan can fight for freedom of Poland. There's nothing wrong for you asking freedom for your brothers. Don't be ashamed, don't be scared, be bold, but behave, don't do any violence. One thing I would like to say, you may agree or disagree, doesn't matter. This Jindabad, Murdabad has not gotten us anywhere. I've done for 12 years in front of the San Francisco Indian consulate. They are deaf and blind. They don't listen, they don't see you. You're wasting your time. I think this format, educating yourself, educating other people, sharing with other sufferers, building a public voice will be very important for us. This is my personal view. If you disagree, you have the right to do that. We need to make alliances with the people from Manipal, Muslim brothers from India, everywhere, and speak up for the rights of the oppressed people wherever you are, if you really believe that you are a Sikh. So this is my point, some of the one I want to share. Finally, we have Sikh Rait Maryada, something in 1930s, which is very good. You know, we can't keep on going for centuries praying for the people who died for us then. What about Mr. Cholera? What about Mr. Niger? What about 1984? I think we need to update. We need to pray everybody for them. Our prayer is not going to do anything good for cholera. It's inspiration we get from them. So we have to not wait for those months in Amritsar to tell what we can pray or not. Every day your prayer must include everybody who died for human rights, especially from 1984, Mr. Cholera, Mr. Niger. They deserve our sympathy. They deserve us to get educated. So finally, thank you very much. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. When we think about all these names being up here, I think we take it very lightly. These people weren't just killed by the Indian state. They were tortured very badly. They had foot-long metal rods heated up and hammered into their legs from the heels upward. A pin was attached through their private parts, and an electricity connection was attached to it so that they could be shocked. Hot metal rods were also passed through their chests. Their eyes were removed. 2 foot-long bars were heated up and hammered from the soles of their feet and up to their knees. They were killed in fake encounters, and worstly, they were burned. They were burned alive. When I think about India, I think about a terrorist country, I think about an undemocratic country. I remember those innocent lives lost just because they are not part of a major religion, which builds up 80% of India. We weren't just eliminated during the reign of Zakaria Khan when the Mughal leaders paid 10 rupees, 50, 100 for the head of Sikhs. We weren't eliminated then, I promise you we won't be eliminated now. When they killed Jaswant Singh Khalda for challenging the darkness, they should know that they did not just end him, they did not end his legacy. They created 1,000 more of Jaswant Singh Khaldas. Sat Sri Akal. Our last speaker, Bibi Paramjit Kaur Khalda, I would please like you to come up here. She is the wife of Shaheed Bhai Jaswant Singh Khalda. She's dedicated to human rights and along with her family remains committed to raising awareness about the tragic events involving the Sikh community in Punjab during the 1984 anti-Sikh riots. Thank you very much. Bibi Paramjit Kaur Khalda. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji.
ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਫਤਿਹ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈਏ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਮੈਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ, ਪਰ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ 2-4 ਮਿੰਟ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲੈਣੇ ਆ, ਇਸ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਯੰਗ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਬੈਠੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਦਾ ਦਰਦ ਵੇਖਿਆ, ਪਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਫਰਕ ਇਹ ਪੈ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਦਰਦ ਸੁਣਿਆ ਅਤੇ ਵੇਖਿਆ, ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹ ਦਰਦ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਹੰਢਾਇਆ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੈ 80-81 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਤੱਕ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਇਆ, ਪੰਜਾਬੋਂ ਬਾਹਰ ਵੀ ਹੋਇਆ, ਮਿਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਧੱਕੇ ਹੋਏ, ਉਹ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਰਹੇ। ਜਿੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਤੇ ਮਿਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਧੱਕਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਕਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੁਸਲਮਾਨ ਭਰਾਵਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਕਦੇ ਮਨੀਪੁਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਕਦੇ ਨਾਗਾਲੈਂਡ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇਨਵੋਲਵ ਰਹੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਇੰਟਰਚ ਰਹੇ। ਜਿੰਨੀ ਕੁ ਸਾਡੀ ਵਾਹ ਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਹ ਦਾ ਨਾਰਾ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ। ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਬਹੁਤਾ ਕੁਝ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ, ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਵੀ ਹੁਣ ਉਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਣਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਡਾਂਗੋ ਸੁੱਟੇ ਹੋਣਾ ਹੈ ਕਿਸੇ ਨਾਲ। ਹੁਣ ਜੋ ਸਿਚੁਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਣ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਵਰਲਡ ਪੱਧਰ 'ਤੇ ਬਣ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਆਂ ਲਈ ਬਣ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਜਦੋਂ ਸਟੇਟਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਹੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਜਾਣ, ਜਦੋਂ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਵੀ ਸਟੇਟਾਂ ਹੀ ਕਰਦੀਆਂ, ਸਟੇਟ ਕੋਲ ਪਾਵਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਪਾਵਰ ਵਰਤ ਕੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਵੇ। ਈਵਨ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਾਵਰ ਵਰਤਦੀ ਆ, ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਨੁੱਖੀ ਅਧਿਕਾਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਹਾਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਹੈ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਨੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਹ ਦਾ ਨਾਰਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ, ਜਿਵੇਂ ਮਲੇਰਕੋਟਲੇ ਦੇ ਨਵਾਬ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਭੁੱਲੇ, ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਨੀ ਮਲੇਰਕੋਟਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਨਤਾ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਲਈ ਉਹਨੇ ਆਹ ਦਾ ਨਾਰਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਹ ਦਾ ਨਾਰਾ ਮਾਰਿਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਆਸਾਨ ਮੰਨਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਵਧੀਆ ਲੱਗਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੋ ਮਸਲੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਇਆ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਹੈ, ਜੋ ਅਸੀਂ 30-40 ਸਾਲ ਤੋਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪਿੰਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੰਢਾਇਆ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵਰਲਡ ਪੱਧਰ 'ਤੇ ਸਮਝਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਾਂਗੂ ਲੜਾਈਆਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀਆਂ। ਇਹ ਬੜੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਦਾ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਰਹੇ, ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੇ, ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹਰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜ਼ੁਲਮ ਮਿਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੋਇਆ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਮੌਕਾ ਮੇਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਢੂੰਡਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਲੱਭਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਤੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਲਾਹਾ ਲੈ ਸਕੀਏ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਆਹ ਨਵਕਿਰਨ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਜੋ ਜ਼ਾਲਮ ਵਰਗੇ ਹੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਣਨਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਫਾਇਦਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ। ਪਰ ਜੇ ਜ਼ਾਲਮ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਲੈਵਰ ਹੈ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸਿਆਣਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉੱਧਰ ਨੂੰ ਤੁਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਕਲੈਵਰ ਬਣਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ, ਔਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਉਹ ਮੌਕਾ ਲੱਭਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਜਿੱਥੋਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀਆਂ ਕਰ ਸਕੇ। ਸਿੱਖ ਧਰਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤਾਂ ਕੋਈ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ, ਨਾ ਇਹ ਦੰਗੇ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਨਾ ਇਹ ਕੋਈ ਮਾੜਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ। ਇੱਕ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਕੋਲ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦੇ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਹੋਰ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ। ਹੁਣ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਰੇ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਰਿਸਰਚਾਂ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੀਆਂ, ਬਹੁਤ ਬੁੱਧੀਜੀਵੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੇ, ਉਹ ਅੱਗੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਪਰ ਮੇਰੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਇੱਕ ਸਲਾਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਦਲ ਸਕਦੇ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੁੱਧੀਜੀਵੀ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਸਮਝਦਾਰ ਬੰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਨੂੰ ਇੰਪਲੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਾਉਣ। ਹਾਰ ਜਿੱਤ ਦਾ ਮਸਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ ਇਹ, ਇੱਕ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਇਮ ਰੱਖਣ ਦਾ ਮਸਲਾ ਹੈ। ਜਿੰਨੀ ਵੀ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਜਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਸਟੇਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਾਂ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਦੇ ਸਿਰੇ 'ਤੇ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਾਂ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਖਾਲੜਾ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੋ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੇਸ਼ੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਮੁਸੀਬਤਾਂ ਆਈਆਂ, ਈਵਨ ਸਾਡੇ 'ਤੇ ਕੇਸ ਵੀ ਦਰਜ ਹੋਏ, ਸਭ ਕੁਛ ਹੋਇਆ, ਪਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੱਡਿਆ। ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਤੇ ਸਮਝੌਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਕਿਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਝੁਕੇ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕਿਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਮੰਗਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਅੱਜ ਇਹ ਨਿਕਲਿਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਥਾਂ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਜੁੜ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ, ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਦੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੁਰਬਾਨੀਆਂ ਕਰਕੇ ਅੱਜ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਕੌਮ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਿਰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਉੱਚਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਿਰ ਉੱਚਾ ਹੋਇਆ। ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਕੁਝ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹਾਂ, ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਸਿਰਫ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਈਫ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਤਿਆਗ ਮੈਂ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀਤਾ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਕੀਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਸੀ, ਜੋ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਸੀ, ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲਿਜਾਣ ਲਈ ਆਪਣਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ। ਜੋ ਵੀ ਕੁਛ ਹੋਇਆ ਉਹ ਕੋਈ ਬਾਹਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ, ਬੜੇ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਨਾਲੋਂ ਕਾਂਡ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪਰ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਦੀ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਧਾਂਤ ਤੋਂ ਸੇਧ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਜਿੰਨੀ ਸੰਗਤ ਸਾਡੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਸੱਚਾਈ ਦੇ ਮਗਰ ਆਈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਆਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਖੜ੍ਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਸਵੰਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਥਾਂ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਯਾਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਜਾ ਰਿਹਾ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਇਹੋ ਹੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤੀ ਹੈ। ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਇਹੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਜੋ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਹੈ, ਪਰ ਮੈਂ ਲਾਈਫ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫੁੱਲੀ ਸੈਟਿਸਫਾਈਡ ਹਾਂ। ਮੈਂ ਕਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੋਚਦੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ ਕੁਝ ਮਿਲਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਪਰਮਾਤਮਾ ਨੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਇੱਜ਼ਤ ਮਾਣ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੈ ਕੌਮ ਨੇ, ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਰਿਣੀ ਰਹਾਂਗੇ। ਅਤੇ ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਤੋਂ ਮਾफ़ੀ ਮੰਗਦੀ ਹਾਂ। ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਪੀਕਰ ਆਏ ਆ, ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦਰਦ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਬਿਆਨ ਕੀਤਾ। ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਦਰਦ ਨੂੰ ਸੁਣ ਕੇ ਸਮਝ ਕੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਲੈਨਿੰਗ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਗੇ ਚੱਲਣਾ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮਿਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਤਾਂ ਮਿਨੋਰਿਟੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਭਾਵੇਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਵੇ। ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਅੱਜ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੀ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਜੋ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੀ ਸਥਿਤੀ ਬਣੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਹੈ। ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੋਈ ਵਾਸਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਿ ਮੋਦੀ ਜਿੱਤਦਾ ਜਾਂ ਕੌਣ ਜਿੱਤਦਾ, ਪਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਵਾਸਤਾ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਸੱਚ ਹੀ ਜਿੱਤੇ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਸੱਚ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਰਲ ਮਿਲ ਕੇ ਐਫਰਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਰਹੀਏ। ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੈਂ ਖਿਮਾ ਦੀ ਜਾਚਕ ਹਾਂ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ।
ਦਹਿਸ਼ਤ, ਮਾਨਸਿਕ ਦਬਾਅ, ਅਤੇ ਬੇਰੁਜ਼ਗਾਰੀ ਦੀ ਹਿਜਰਤ, ਬੇਚੈਨ ਦਿਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ। ਕੋਈ ਬੌੜੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਦੇਸ਼ ਲਈ। ਆਓ ਪੱਥਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਮਸ਼ੀਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ 'ਚ ਗੁੰਮ ਗਏ ਬਚਪਨ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਭੀਏ। ਸਤਲੁਜ, ਸੱਚ ਦਾ ਨਿਰੰਤਰ ਵਹਿੰਦਾ ਦਰਿਆ।